The following episode of TOFOP is rated MA. It may contain Batman references, time travel references, sexual references, lost trains of thought, and mild coarse language. TOFOP advises that the program is not suitable for anyone under the age of 15, or anyone who enjoys succinct, coherent conversation that might actually have a point. Minors must be accompanied by a parent, guardian, or priest. This is John Deek speaking.
Everyone relax. This is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Wil Anderson. Hello, Charlie. Hey, first questions first.
Yeah.
Any Dolph updates? Have you seen Dolph since we last talked?
No. He's the white whale of West Hollywood, or the unicorn of West Hollywood. I saw him, but I've gone to that gym since. Just done in a workout, just anxiously looking at the door. But no, I haven't seen him since.
Do you reckon that, the thing is too, if they were going to make a movie that starred a unicorn, he could definitely get cast as the unicorn.
Yeah. Or a centaur. He'd be a bit of centaur.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, no, he'd be a really good centaur. We've got to get some centaur project up for Dolph. That's how we get him involved.
Yeah, 100%. Now, this is funny because we had to record this one. Well, it's late for me, so it's 11 p.m. in the States. So I kind of feel like, when you're at uni and you'd cram for an exam or something, you'd stay up late listening to the radio and you'd listen to those late night sort of call-in shows. Like, I sort of feel like that's what's going on here.
Right.
Just like a bit weary.
This
I've
is
had a
like
few beers.
midnight caller.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you to just send a dedication to my ex-girlfriend.
I'd just like to send a shout out to Rebecca if you're out there. Charlie's been thinking of you and telling a lot of stories about you on the podcast. And tonight, he'd just like to send this one out to you. It's called Cease and Desist.
What was the name of the girl you got you made the badge for?
Leah Butterick. Yeah, Leah Butterick.
Leah Butterick. This is a dedication from Wil Anderson. He's got a garage full of buttons with your face on them.
Can you imagine how creepy it'd be if I still had the buttons?
Oh, man, I actually was thinking of contacting you today to say, could we get those printed up for TOFOP Live? I thought that's some great merch there.
You mean, could we get people to buy our merchandise, which would be badges of a non-consenting 15-year-old girl? Yeah, no, that's a great idea, Charlie.
TOFOP, we'll see you in court.
Yes. Speaking of our big live show at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, we will have some posters and stuff that we will sign. It's going to be a huge night. It's well over half sold out already, and we've confirmed some guests already. Nick Cody, Celia Piccola, Daniel Sloss, all previous guest Charlies who will be on the show. Looks like Justin Hamilton will probably pop in. It's going to be a really huge show. It's going to be awesome.
Well, you know who's gone radio silent on me all of a sudden?
Oh, don't tell me.
Deeksy, mate. He's gone underground.
Hang on, what's going on?
I don't know. I mean, because I sent him an email because he normally writes back straight away. I sent him an email just with the new intro and stuff, and just said, "Hey, if you've got any ideas, you got open slather." And then didn't hear anything back, which is unusual for him. So then I sent him a message on Facebook, sent nothing back. And then I had this fucking panic attack. I was like, I let him know about the show, right? But I went through my phone and we had a text exchange, a couple of months ago where it was like, yeah, April 15th, no problem, absolutely. But I don't know, maybe he's on assignment. Maybe he's with Sam Mack up in northern Queensland and no one noticed. Maybe Deeksy was on the ground. He is a seven personality.
Is there a chance that Deeksy just in an attempt at career advancement has taken himself into the cyclone? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's seen Sam Mack, an up-and-comer through the organisation. He must look at him a little bit jealousy. I can see, Deeksy, seeing a bit of a young John Deeks in a young Sam Mack. He sees
100%.
the guy he could have been, or the guy he could be again, perhaps, if he puts himself in the right situation. He's seen how dangerous it was for Sam Mack up there in the Cyclones, and Deeksy's gone, you know what? This could be an opportunity. I'll be nearby, and if, say, Sam Mack or Koshy get blown away in the cyclone, who's there? Deeksy.
I'll go one step further. I believe he's created some futuristic technology where he's transplanted his consciousness into Sam Mack. So Sam Mack is actually John Deeks. John Deeks' body is in a cryotube somewhere, but his consciousness is in Sam Mack. That's why Sam's getting all these amazing opportunities. It's Deeksy having a second crack at his young career.
That wouldn't surprise me if Channel 7 had that sort of technology. Do you know what I mean? It wouldn't surprise me if right now they're working on a body that they can transplant Ray Ma's brain into, for when he finally decides to leave home and away. Maybe that could have been you, Charlie. Maybe if you've held on to it, you could have been the guy that got Ray Ma. You could have been the new Alf Stewart.
Yeah.
Young
100%.
Alf. Alfred Stewart.
There we go, mate. Fucking they're rebooting everything. The Adventures of Young Alfred Stewart.
I mean, that'd be good, actually. That'd be a good take on Home and Away, right? Like, do it as a period drama. Kind of set it in the time in Summer Bay where Alf would have been young, and kind of
here's the thing, right? When we would do scenes with Ray, like always the joke was like Alf Stewart seems to be the largest landowner in Summer Bay. Like he owns multiple properties, runs the caravan park, runs the bait shop, owns that big house on the hill, but no one seems to know where the money came from. Like, did Elsa and is that why Elsa's gone? Like, did he push her off a cliff or something like that? Like, where has all this money come from? So you could do a gritty reboot of like young Alfred Stewart and explore like, maybe that's not even his real name. Maybe he's a guy who, escaped the city or something like that. And, there was another Alf Stewart there, a younger guy there, like who was a fisherman and stuff. And he killed him and stole his identity and planted himself in Summer Bay.
Oh, what's that movie? The Talented Mr. Ripley, right?
Yes, the talented Alfred Stewart.
Right. And it turns out he doesn't even speak like that. That's his cover. Like he had this really posh kind of, big city, accent and stuff. And you see him come to Summer Bay and sort of adapt the flaming mongrels. And that's why Alf's accent and his way of expressing himself is so flamboyantly Australian, because this is all part of the flamboyant cover story that the talented Mr. Alfred Stewart has.
Who would you cast as a young Alf Stewart?
I mean, you need someone rugged. What age is he going to be in this, do you think?
Okay, so let's see. So the show's been on there for 30 years. Ray's in his early 70s. So you'd want to start it kind of just before that. So kind of early 30s, I think.
Okay, that's good. That gives us some actors we might have actually heard of that we can cast in this role, right? So you need someone who, I mean, I imagine he was a handsome, sort of guy when he was younger, don't you think?
Yeah, like he's in Breaker Morant. He's one of the soldiers in Breaker Morant. And he was a young sandy head, had that classic Aussie sort of Paul Hogan look, Everyone was kind of blonde in Australia in the 70s. Jack Thompson, Paul Hogan. Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? We had a thing for blonde men for a while, and now we just have the government policies that suit the people who love blonde hair. So we need someone who's in their early 30s. I mean, obviously, obvious candidates, when you were spitballing this in a meeting, you'd be looking at who you could get as a Hollywood celebrity come back. I mean...
Yeah, so let's say when we're not doing this for TV, this is going to be a movie. This is going to be a feature film. It's actually going to be like a big budget feature spin-off. So the sky's the limit. Like you can go out to big Australia. You know what? Let's not even limit to Australia. There's lots of actors who can do an accent. You can maybe get like an Andrew Garfield in to do it.
Yeah, you could definitely do that. But I reckon, I mean, this is a bit close to home, but I just think it'd be like one of those things it'd be sort of poetic. People would like it. It'd be romantic. I'm going to say Liam Hemsworth.
Yeah, right.
Right? Chris was in the show,
Yep.
connection to the original source material. It's where Chris's first big break was, but Liam feels a bit like a young Alf Stewart to me.
Yeah, and you could have like a little bit of sort of like an in-joke where whatever Chris Hemsworth's character was called, like... young Alf meets the parents of that, his parents as kids, and it's like Back to the Future. It's like, well, you two better get together because you're going to make a Thor. All right, okay. We need to workshop it. That's the first draft.
A flaming Thor. Sorry.
Do you actually know that Alf Stewart kind of vernacular? He's he's kind of flaming this and flaming that, and stone the crows and stuff.
Stone the bloody crows.
Do you actually know any Australians who talk like that? I mean, you're from Hayfield.
Yeah, heaps.
Really?
Oh, yeah, that's pretty much how everyone where I grew up talked. No. In the country, big on, your classic Aussie vernacular, calling people... I still call everyone mate. But back then it was like cobber, and Digger. Like everybody had some sort of like, nickname or some, it was always like, oh mate, you were never dry. You were dry as a, dead dingo's donger or whatever it was.
So was it hard for you to drop that?
I mean, it's pretty easy for me to fall back into it, is what I would say. Like,
I've got a lot of mates. You're not the only friend of mine who comes from the country, but I got a lot of mates who I've gone back to their hometown with them, and they change. Like as soon as they see their old mates from high school, all of a sudden it's just like goes back up in their nose and they start talking like this and stuff. It all changes.
Yeah, I mean, once you get to the country, firstly, slow down how fast you talk. Don't really open your mouth when you talk to people. Shake hands from as far away from the person as you possibly can. That's a country thing. Like literally get only as close as you touching each other's hands will allow. Often, if you can do that thing where you lean in on one foot and they lean in on one foot, so you kind of are still, your other foot is as far away from the person as possible. There's a bit of that going on in the country still. A lot of weather chat. That's your big thing. If you're going to go back to the country, you better get used to talking about the weather like half of the day. That's where your Sam Mac needs to be, in country towns, because all they want to talk about is the weather.
I remember our mate Vaughan, who's from the country in Victoria. He told me this story about going back to visit. He'd been living in the city for a while and going back to visit his parents for Easter or something like that. And his dad answered the door and he kind of was just like standing there awkwardly. And Vaughan's like, oh, "What's wrong, Dad?" And he's like, "Your mum says I've got to give you a hug." So he kind of leaned out, kept the hips in place and leaned out as far as he could to hug his own son.
I mean, it's one of those things where you're just like, there's a generation of Australian men that even though that like literally Vaughan came out of his penis. I mean, I know that's not how exactly it worked. I'm skipping some steps, but like as an origin story, this kid came out of his penis. Like, let's just think about that for a second. You are afraid. What is wrong with us as human beings when you're afraid to hug your son, who, if you go back to his origin story, at some stage shot out of your penis?
Yeah. Started in your balls, I believe. I'm no scientist, but I believe they start in the ball region.
Yeah, you're glad that he isn't visiting his original home, your nutsack. It's his birthday. He just likes to, 9 months before every birthday, he just likes to gently rest his head on your testicles. That's all he asks. It's called go back to where you came from, mate.
I just want to have a splash around on your nuts. Just like, I'm feeling nostalgic. Just want to swim around on your balls, if that's all right.
That's all right, mate. It's where I'm from. I just want to reconnect with my roots, you know?
Well, I connected with your mother's roots that night.
Oh, Dad, don't make this weird.
You're back in your North Face jacket. I'm guessing Melbourne hasn't got any warmer.
No, Melbourne is like, it gets warmish during the day, but as it comes to night here now, it gets cool pretty quickly. But also I'm up high and it gets a bit cooler up here, I think, than it does down on the ground. I don't know how weather works because I think hot air rises, but I don't know. Anyway, it's cold enough that I have a jacket on. Yeah, exactly. Got to get to the country town or to Sam Mac. No, it's all been going well, but I feel like I'm got a little tickle in my throat. I did my first ever show with an Auslan interpreter last night, like a sign language person on stage, which was kind of amazing, actually.
You would have had fun with that, I imagine. Swearing.
Yeah. It was one of those things where I just walked out because she was also a lovely woman, I would say, in her mid-40s, but I don't want to, mischaracterize that. But, and like a really lovely woman. She'd come and seen the show. She knew what she was in for. And I just was like, oh, well, I'll just mostly do the show and then just occasionally, if I need to, I'll interact. And I've walked out on stage and I introduced her and I couldn't help myself. Literally the first thing I said is like, and occasionally I'll probably just make her say things like cocksucker to see what she does. And then this poor woman, like the first thing she has to do is, and amazingly, Charlie, you might not be able to guess what the Auslan sign language interpretation for cocksucker is, but it's much like the one that you might guess it is. It's pretty much
kind
somebody
like...
doing...
Does it look like you're brushing your teeth, but with more of an open grip?
Yeah, it looks like you're brushing your teeth, but your toothbrush is an electric one, so it's quite thick. And also you're doing it a bit more from the front rather than from the side.
It's like you're trying to brush the back of your throat for some reason.
Yeah. I mean, admittedly, they don't do the one that sometimes you do where you put your tongue in your cheek so it looks like it's going in. She didn't go to that extra level of detail, but...
There was a dude at my gym who I assume is deaf, because I watched him talking to this guy, and he was explaining to the guy, like he wasn't using words, but he would write on his phone, show the guy, and then the guy would talk and he would respond on the pad. And so what I realized he was doing is he was reading this guy's lips. And it was interesting because the guy he was talking to was an Aussie. I mean, I don't know where this guy was from, but I assume, you know, he was American. But like the degree, because what they were working out right next to me, and the accuracy with which they're having this conversation, like this dude didn't miss a trick. And all those, I mean, not only does the Aussie mouth move differently, I imagine, to an American mouth, but all the vernacular that this guy was using and stuff, it was amazing. Like, what if that is almost like a, you know, if you're going to get a skill out of something like that, I mean, you could go into the CIA, right?
Right. No. It's a good opportunity to be, to make your, what has been hard for you, make it your skill. Like, I mean, just to be hired in Hollywood, I mean, it'd be good for meetings, kind of corporate espionage. Like, there'd be so many, or people could just hire you to, spy on what somebody was saying at a table, just people who love gossip. Be good for newspapers and magazines. He could have his own Perez Hilton style, like site, really.
Okay, we're going to try an experiment here. I'm going to turn my volume down to 0. I want you to say a short sentence. I'll put my speakers back up and I'll try and tell you what I think you said. Ready? All right.
Okay. Charlie.
Charlie is stiff?
Well, that wasn't too bad. That's not too bad. You got Charlie.
What was the last part?
Eats dicks. So not bad. Sorry, I still had the sign language in my head. It's not your fault. I wouldn't normally have gone that crude. You do one, because this will make it extra hard, because all this podcast on the Skype, you haven't actually been in sync with your voice anyway. So I've just been kind of going, oh, well, it's sounding fine, and not dealing with it. So this will be like me doing a max headroom challenge, because your face doesn't even look like what you're saying anyway. But I'm going to get you to say a sentence, and I'm going to see if I can guess. I'll turn down my volume. Hang on.
Wil Anderson.
I have no idea what you said. Was there a Will?
I said you're a cockhead.
Ah, okay. Yeah. No, it didn't look like that.
I said Wil Anderson is my best friend.
Oh, boo. Man. Hey, speaking of Australian movie stars, I did actually click a little article I wanted to read here, because it's somebody we have some interest in. You may have seen this week that Shia LaBeouf, however they say his name, his movie Man Down, and it was one of these stories that everybody loved, because it opened in the UK and it only sold one ticket, right? So the entire box office was $11.50 for this movie on the first day, right? Now here's the thing. It was only in one cinema, it turned out, but it still only sold one ticket on its first day. Now, there's been a review in the paper by a guy called Rob Moran. I'll just read some of it for you. It's the kind of headline made to go viral. A gleeful dig at Hollywood pretensions and movie star failings. Shia LaBeouf's new movie sells just one ticket at the UK box office, earns $11.50. Obviously, it's a wonderful image. Someone reclining in some empty mall cinema in Burnley, a king or queen in a puddle of popcorn, legs cradled across the row in front, eagerly anticipating LaBeouf's latest performance, or confusedly wondering where Emma Watson and those talking candlesticks are. All right, Matt, let's not go crazy. The film, as the details go, was released in just one theatre in the UK, largely ushered to DVD and streaming sites amid horrible reviews in the US. But is it really that bad? Well, for a solid hour, you might think everyone's got it horribly wrong. Until the last 20 minutes, when it jumps the shark from intimate drama to trash movie nuttiness. The film follows Gabriel Drummer LaBeouf, a small-town Texan soldier, and loving husband to Natalie, Kate Mara. I like her. She's cool. Dad to Johnny, and bro to hard-ass Devon. Now, we'll return to Devon. As he prepares for a tour of duty in war-torn Afghanistan. For a while, it's a family drama masquerading as a war film, scenes lingering on the day-to-day stress felt by military families. The film intimately charts the quartet's relationships, blah, 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 blah. There's focus on the constraints of masculinity, too, the way Drummer's tenderness on display in early scenes with Johnny is drilled out of him by his Marines training, echoing LeBouf's earlier, more successful collaborations, A Guide to Recognising Your Saints. I don't know why everyone hates this, you might think to yourself, for about 70 minutes, until the odd kicker hits 20 minutes from the end. After a horror attack on duty and an uncomfortable discovery at home involving his wife, Drummer's personal struggle becomes a flashy descent into madness and turns what might have been a subtle treatment of military PTSD into an embarrassing B-movie that even M. Night Shyamalan would be ashamed of the twist. So, now, everybody's blaming the movie and everybody's blaming Shia, but I've got a different theory on this because it goes to something we've talked about before on this podcast. Because the other actor, who I did not name, and again, I mean this with no disrespect, but I believe he's a curse. He's never been in a good movie. He's not bad himself, but he's a curse. Because the other actor is, of course, Australian actor Jai Courtney. Never been in a good film. Don't put him in your films. It's not his fault. He's a good actor. Well, he's an okay actor. He's not a terrible actor, but he is only in terrible movies. Don't put him in your movie.
I have an alternate theory.
Okay.
Shia LaBeouf, for the last however many years, has been setting himself up as this performance artist, right?
Right.
Like, you know, he does that exhibition where you can go and you can slap him in the face or whatever.
Yeah.
So he went through the system as like Hollywood it boy, and it feels like he's been trying to undo that image ever since. Now, I think we've discussed on this show before, but there was a theory back in the Baby Shambles days. Remember when Pete Doherty was in the paper all the time because he was, you know, high, stumbling out of a club, or he got caught shooting up in an alley or something.
It's one of my favorite stories of all time, this one. I love it.
Yeah. So there was this, people for a long time were like, who is this Pete Doherty? And how come like he keeps sort of like being in the papers and stuff? Like no one ever really knows his band that well. So then this theory came out that the KLF are gonna rock ya, who had disappeared off the music scene for a while, but were kind of, you know, like edgy alternative artists themselves. There was a theory going around that Pete Doherty was a KLF experiment.
Right.
They had decided to create the anti-celebrity. How repulsive and disgusting and talent-free could someone be and still be adored by the masses? So, I would not be surprised. Look, there's two things. Either it's a legit, like, you know, this is his performance artist piece, or I reckon he can come out and claim it. In the same way that, like, you know, Joaquin and Casey Affleck could come out and claim that film, you know, the one where Joaquin was acting like a psycho for a year and a half.
I'm Not All There or whatever.
Yeah, that's I'm not all there. That's it. I'm already there. I was there. Could be there. I don't know.
Yeah, I won't be there. Anyway, this is... Okay, look, I've Googled the KLF thing. I know we've talked about it previously, but it has got me a list here of Time Out London, and it's, believe it or not, London's top 10 music myths. So...
Okay, let's do it.
So at number 7 was the one that we've started with. The KLF invented Pete Doherty. Acid House pranksters the KLF might have burnt £1 million and fired a machine gun filled with blanks at the Brit Awards audience. So already that's great. They burnt £1 million and fired machine guns at the Brits. That's some good fun.
I mean,
KLF.
Like it's funny. That's not that long ago, really. Like 20 years is that not? You could take a gun filled with blanks to an awards show 20 years ago, and everyone's like, "All right, that passes."
I know, it's crazy, and the idea that, like, you know, 20 years ago the KLF thought they were going to do well enough that they could burn £1 million. I bet there's in 15 years, one of the members of the KLF will turn to the other member of the KLF and go, "Hey, I've had to go on the pension. Do you remember when we burnt $1 million?" Okay, so
I believe the burning the $1 million was a statement because there was an art prize in London at the time, there was $1 million prize for new artists, and so again, it was them being anti. It's like, we are going to do the opposite, you know, because I think they had a competition, create some artwork, and we'll burn $1 million.
Yeah, no, mate, I got it, but I just think. The KLF did fine, I'm sure, but I bet there's a time later in their life they'll be like, that was a cool statement, but we could have made it with like $500,000, probably. All right. They did really take a gangly Buddy Holly impersonator called Trevor McDermott and turn him into one of the biggest figures in noughties indie. No, they didn't. But that doesn't mean that we can't admire the audacity of the 2006 press release that claims they did. If nothing else, the idea of the hoax is much more enjoyable. Okay, all right. So that's at number 7. But let's go down the list of the 10.
Can I make a prediction?
Please.
And again, we've talked about this on the show before, so I'm assuming it will come up again. Is the Paul McCartney impersonator in there? Can you see?
Let me have a look. There is a Beatles one. It is not Paul McCartney. No.
Okay, all right. Go back to 10.
Here we go. Number 1. Sid Vicious's ashes were scattered at Heathrow Airport. Here we go. The jury's still out, but this one could well be true. The mother of the Sex Pistols bassist claims she scattered his ashes over the Philadelphia grave of his girlfriend Nancy Spungen, which would have been quite romantic if he wasn't the prime suspect in her murder. But several witnesses claim she brought his ashes back from the US to the UK only to slip and unintentionally drop them while getting off the plane.
Dum 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 dun 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 dun.
It's like a scene on like a new airplane sequel. That's what there'd be. Somebody's had ashes the whole flight and then stumbles off the.
Yeah, Frank Drebin.
All right, here's one, Charlie. You might have heard of this. Do you know who Mama Cass is? From the Mamas and the Papas?
Choked on a sandwich.
Okay, so Mama Cass choked on a sandwich. Like Stevie Nicks' bottom and that straw, a half-eaten ham sandwich has haunted the memories of the Mamas and Papas singer ever since her death in a Mayfair flat.
Hang on, sorry. Like who in the straw?
I do not know
Stevie
that one.
Nicks.
Stevie Nicks
What's
and the
that
straw.
one?
Well,
no. What's that story?
So apparently, at one stage, Stevie Nicks was doing so much coke that her kind of nose wouldn't take any coke anymore. So she had an assistant who used to blow cocaine into her anus using a straw.
Okay. All right.
And somehow it got out, and everybody knows about it.
That is, how does that conversation go? Like, really, I'm assuming it's an assistant or someone or a PA.
Right.
Like, it's someone who's not on enough money to be blowing coke up someone's anus.
Right. So, well, I imagine it's like, it wouldn't be an internship, and you get a straw. You probably get a... Here we go. All right. Exclusive. Here we go. I'm going to find out about Stevie Nicks now. Stevie Nicks was 27 when she became Queen Bee of the British American rock band Fleetwood Mac. Blah, blah, blah. She hadn't indulged in drugs before she joined Fleetwood Mac. She descended into drug hell and became addicted to cocaine, alcohol, quaaludes to sleep, and cigarettes until her system broke down and she started having nosebleeds, falls on stage, blackouts, and near overdoses. Now, some people in that situation, Charlie, would have gone, I should get off the drugs. But Stevie doesn't think like that. She sees a problem and she sees solutions, and they involve straws and assistance. She bought $1 million worth of cocaine. Probably not at once, I imagine. And
oh, right. I was going to say, she's going to need a big bloody straw. They're just going to back up a cement mixer.
Hey, Stevie, I think we're going to need a bigger straw. She burned a hole in her nose the size of a dime. By an assistant. Drugs blown up her derriere by an assistant. So an ass assistant, I imagine.
Clever. Like it.
She just put a little colon or a little line in the middle in the job application, and they go, well, I'm here for your assistant job. Oh, and you're like, sorry, you must have misread it. It's actually an ass assistant. And what you will have to do is blow drugs up my ass. Yeah,
that's not just a colon. That's a colon for my colon.
Yeah, that's literally a colon. And what it's meant to say is you will have to blow drugs up my colon. It's all there in the job application. You agreed to this. All right. So, Mama Cass, did she choke on a ham sandwich? Largely because Cass was a bigger lady. Early speculation by investigating officers about a sandwich found near her body quickly became the accepted truth. In fact, the 32-year-old died of a heart attack probably caused by crash dieting, so the opposite. And no food was found in her windpipe at all. So there you go. Myth busted. Mama Cass, do not choke on a sandwich.
You know what we should do? We should do our own version of Mythbusters, where we bust all these rock star myths, where like we try and put cocaine up our asses, we see if we can like choke on a sandwich.
Right. Yeah.
I'll do the first episode. You do the sandwich one.
Okay. I'm fine with that. All right. Hang on. All right. I've never heard of this one. Bob Holness, Sax God. What B refers to both the male gonads and an outrageous untruth? No doubt the late box must have presented blah, 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 blah. No, okay, I'm just going to leave that one because I don't think we know anything about it.
Okay.
Aphex Twin lived on a roundabout. Okay, this is good. If his music videos are anything to go by, electronic pioneer Richard David James is a long way off centre on the sanity spectrum. If you've never seen an Aphex Twin music video, like they normally come on Rage at about 3 o'clock in the morning when you've come home from a big night out, and they will freak the fuck out of you. I went and saw him in concert once, and it was one of the most confronting experiences I've ever had in my life. So when the rumours circulated that he was living inside the weird cubic silver structure on the Elephant and Castle roundabout, most people probably just shrugged and thought, yeah, that makes sense. In fact, the metal box is a monument to scientist Michael Faraday, and James was living nearby in a disused bank. So, I mean, it's still pretty weird.
Yeah, that's still pretty weird.
Right.
But it's kind of like, I mean, we're sort of now in an era now where there's like a president where you could hear that he's like moved the fucking White House to the middle of a roundabout, you know, and he's in some Faraday cage, and you'd be like, yep, okay, sure. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, like, I mean, Donald Trump might be an invention by the KLF. It's got the KLF's hands all over it, as far as I can tell.
Well, Steve Bannon looks like he's had a lot of coke blown up his ass.
All right. In fifth place, this one's a pretty common one. In fifth place, the Beatles got blazed at the palace. So, you know, I've always heard the rumour of the...
Oh, yeah.
Yep, okay. So it's nice to imagine a red-eyed Fab Four giggling their way up to the Queen and asking if she had any snacks. But alas, the legend of John, Paul, George and Ringo smoking a joint in the Buckingham Palace toilets before collecting their MBEs is probably false. John Lennon initially made the claim, but it was later refuted by both Paul McCartney and George Harrison, who said the band smoked a cigarette before meeting Her Madge, but saved the weed for later. Well, that's boring.
Yeah, that's disappointing.
That is myth busted, but sadly. All right. All right. I think the sixth one is not really for us. It's a bit too British. Here we go. In eighth place, Mark Armand, Jizz Guzzler.
Sounds like the name of a TOFOP episode.
It really does, doesn't it? It might be the name of this episode. Mark Armand, Jizz Guzzler. Doesn't mean he guzzled it out of colons.
Hang on. Well, so who's Mark Armand, first of all?
Okay, here we go. Let's find out, because I don't really know either. He seems like some pop star, I would say, but I'm going to Google him now. Mark Armand.
I've got a feeling, just from the name of this one, I feel like there was a similar, you know, because these urban myths, you adapt for whatever generation. I believe, I'm going to venture a guess, something about pumping a stomach and finding like liters of semen in there. Because when I was at primary school, we used to say that about Luke Goss, the lead singer of Bros, that he got rushed to hospital. Yeah. Oh, so you heard the same rumor?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's true then.
It was an updated version of the same story, I reckon. I reckon this story's been going around for years. There's probably somebody going now, like, you know, Louis from One Direction had to have his like stomach pumped because it was full of jizz. Here we go. Mark Armand was the the singer from Soft Cell. You remember Soft Cell, Tainted Love?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so... here we go. Mark Armand, Jizz Guzzler. I love it. It's like, it just sounds like the title of a really good reality show. Like one of those adventure, like he goes from town to town. He's like Anthony Bourdain, but he goes around guzzling jizz in different places around the world and go, well, you know, the olive oil that the Italians eat really makes the jizz guzzle much sweeter.
Yeah. Did you like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Killer? Because we've got another script for you.
Mark Armand, Jizz Guzzler. Or Luke Goss, Jizz Guzzler. Like Bowie, Jagger, Britney, Elton, Alanis, and numerous others, poor old Mark Armand fell victim to a scurrilous rumour about a stomach pump and a pint of nutritious man sap. What a lovely...
How did, like, the few names you threw out there, how did Alanis Morissette get swept up in all that?
I mean, I guess...
that would be ironic.
Well, I guess it was because she, went down on that guy in the theatre.
Oh, yeah, of course. She explicitly stated it. Yeah.
That's classic jizz guzzling behaviour. Alanis Morissette, jizz guzzler. It'd be great if her next album was called Jizz Guzzler.
Guzzler little pill.
All right, here we go. So it turns out it wasn't true. It wasn't true for any of them. No one has ever, no one like famous who's had that story told about them has ever had their stomach pumped. So even now, here's the good news. If at any stage you are like a pop singer and you do have a thing where you have to have your stomach pumped because it's got too much jizz in it, your cover story is already in. Like, people wouldn't believe it anyway. They'd be like, oh, yeah, I heard that about Mark Armand, Bowie, Jagger, Luke Goss, and Alanis Morissette. It is clearly not true. In ninth spot, David Bowie and Mick Jagger were lovers. Did they get it on, or were they just sharing a bed after a heavy night? Bowie's ex-wife claims she came home to their London pad in the mid-70s and caught the two rock gods under the covers, and others have suggested they were involved in a long love affair. They're saying jury's still out on this one. Could be true. Could be true, but they don't have...
All you need to do is watch the music video for Dancing in the Streets to see two men desperately in love.
To see two men who are also clearly dancing in the sheets.
I mean, you wouldn't be surprised. Like, that one's... I mean, you'd think those guys at the time in which they were famous and what they would have had access to, of course, at some stage, they're going to do that, right? Like, when you've had sex with everyone else in the world and your best friend's lying next to you, of course you're going to give it a crack, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, why not? It was, you're crazy. You're kings of the world. You're two of the most sexy people on the planet in a time where people were liberated and experimenting with their sexuality. Of course you would. I hope people are still doing that.
I think they are.
I mean, having sex, but I hope... No, I just like to see, whoever the two most popular... I hope Justin Bieber and Ed Sheeran have fucked.
Did you say you hope they're fucked? Or you hope they have fucked?
I reckon that'd be great. Wouldn't it be great? I mean, Ed Sheeran wrote, I think both of the songs that went to number one for Justin Bieber, plus, has had a whole bunch of number ones himself. Imagine they're just partying one night and they're like, I guess we're the Bowie and Jagger of our generation. How about we...
I remember when I was in high school when Silverchair sort of first hit the scene, they released Tomorrow and stuff, and there were those 15-year-old kids from Newcastle who were playing all these festivals and stuff. And there was a street magazine in Melbourne I used to get, that was very kind of took itself very seriously. They're very about the music. And there was always in the letter section, there was always this debate raging over, are Silverchair any good, or, all this kind of stuff. And then for about 3 weeks, there was this letter exchange or this kind of debate happening. Because this is, kids, there was a time before the internet. Back then, if you wanted to express your views, your outrageous views online, you actually had to write to a publication and hope they printed it. But there was this discussion going around about whether or not Daniel Johns was a virgin, because he would have only been 15 or 16 at the time. And this girl wrote into the street mag and she said, he's not a virgin because I slept with him after blah, 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 whatever festival it was. And then the torrent of it went to, it was gripping. I couldn't wait to get each week's new issue where you'd have people jumping on board, defenders if he's saying, no, Daniel wouldn't do that. And, Daniel said that, he's a virgin and it's all about the music and he wouldn't just sleep around. And then other people saying are you fucking kidding me? You give a 16-year-old an audience and then after the show he can go hang out with all these chicks and stuff. There's no way that guy is staying a virgin. And then one guy chimed in with a letter that is still stuck with me, was there's no way this girl could have taken his virginity because Silverchair already fucked.
Just one guy who's been waiting for the internet to come along all this time so he can get out his sweet slams. There's a famous...
Signed M. Latham.
I'm going to Google something, but I'm just going to... Can we just pause for a second while I have a bathroom break, if that's all right?
What? What do you mean? Like it's online? How do you know? Or is it someone speculating? Oh God, do I want? No. Oh, this is one of those websites that I never want to go to because I get scared. No, is that where it's like people getting hit by trains and shit, right? Oh my God, I'm watching it. Oh. Oh no. Oh my God. All right. Well, okay. Well, we've got something we can come back with. Oh dear.
And we're back.
Okay, we took a little break, but I'm pretty disturbed. Mike Hal just shared a link with me, which is from a website called LiveLeak, which shows how one has cocaine administered to their anus.
Oh, there's an instructional video? Of course there is. It's the internet.
Not instructional. It's at a music festival somewhere, but yeah, that's something I'll never be able to unsee.
All right. So should we?
We're not back. That was me being back.
I don't know. I didn't know if we were back or not back. It can stay in.
You can pick it up.
I found something else as well. You might have seen this. It's a meme. It goes around the internet every now and again, and it's a hockey player at a hockey game. Have you seen this one? And it's two girls. No. So I'll describe it to you. Okay. Basically, so you can imagine your ice hockey player, skating around, where the glass is and everyone can kind of tap on the glass. And he's obviously just done something and he's skating by. And there's two girls there and they've got a sign, a professionally printed out sign. And it says, Tyler, number 19. So a traditional sort of thing that you go if you liked a player. And then it says underneath, we sucked your dick in high school. Do you remember us? And they both could not be happier. They're both waving at him like, hi, it's us. And the look on his face, I mean, it's brilliant. I'm going to have to send you this photo just so you can see it. But it's some absolute quality.
What? Okay. All right. I'm clicking on the link. I believe this is real. And yeah. Okay, that looks like a legitimate photo. Wow, that's amazing. They do look happy about it, don't they? He's laughing though.
Yeah, he's loving it. He's like
there is
at high school and maybe later
no, you know
tonight.
What? That has to be Photoshop.
Do you reckon it's Photoshopped?
Of course it is.
Let's see if we can. Is this our first episode of Mythbusters, Charlie? Should we?
Yeah, let's do it. Did Tyler actually get his dick sucked by two girls in high school? If you asked Tyler, he would say, yeah, they're all from Canada. You wouldn't know them.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, Tyler made those. Yeah, Tyler made those. He goes, it was when I was playing hockey in Canada. All right, here we go. Maybe. Boo. Okay. All right. So it turns out.
You can't believe anything. It's fake news, Will. Fake news.
Man, fake news. Alternative facts. All right, here we go.
All right, so what I was thinking, right? Like, if you, with all this like amazing Photoshop and photorealistic CGI and stuff, if you kidnapped someone in a time machine from no, you didn't kidnap them. You took you took your iPad, you loaded up, I don't know, Transformers or some CGI fest and went back to 1920s wherever and showed them. You said, I'm from the future. This is what's going to happen. Do you think that they would accept that what they were looking at was real? Or do you think there is something in humans, that uncanny valley thing, where they would be able to differentiate, even though they've never seen anything like that? Do you think that they could look at that CGI and go, look, no, I don't buy it. I believe that you're from the future. I believe you're being messaged, but I think that is fake. That is fake news.
Do you think that, there's that theory about the Berenstain Bears and stuff that, is kind of posited that we're now living in an alternative reality?
Yeah. What's it called? There's a name for it. It's like there's something syndrome. It's called like the. Look it up, Michael. It's where people misremember events. It's like a group delusion of historical events.
Okay, I've looked up Berenstain Bears alternate reality, and let's just see. Here we go. All right. The AV Club's done something on it. I like the AV Club, so let's have a look at that. How you spell the Berenstain Bears could be proof of a parallel universe. There we go. It was this innocent comment left on a post about parallel universes that first pulled Rob Schwartz of Stranger Dimensions into one of the internet's strangest theories. It involves the Berenstain Bears, a loving family of anthropomorphized bears who taught children life lessons via hundreds of picture books and 2 TV shows. But the problem is they aren't the Berenstain Bears, they're the Berenstain Bears. Though a startling number of people remember the name as Berenstain or Steen, it's in fact spelt Berenstain, just like the authors Stan and Jan Berenstain. But is it possible so many people are wrong about the title? Back in 2012, blogger Reese offered up another explanation. Some of us have recently crossed over from a parallel universe. He argues that at some time in the last 10 years or so, reality has been tampered with and history has been retroactively changed. The Bears
there's
really
a name
were.
for it.
All right.
It's something. It's got a name because I listened to a podcast where they were talking about this exact thing because it's
Confabulation.
No, not confabulation.
No?
No, that's not it. There's actually a name for it. It might be because of the person who put the theory out there, but there's a similar one. Everyone remembers like a Shaq film called Shazam or Kazam or something like that, but this film doesn't actually exist.
Hang on, what? Shazam?
Or Kazam or something. There's a genie film.
A genie film by Shaq. Yeah, that's real, right?
I don't know. I think that there's something about that doesn't exist. Shaq film that isn't real. I'm going to type that into the internet. This is a great episode of TOFOP.
We've gone deep on this today. Kazam. Yeah,
but
right?
I think people remembered it as Shazam. Oh, there's something about this as well. Maybe I'm in an alternate reality because I'm thinking of something that maybe I can't remember. Shazam misremembered? Maybe that's it.
Sinbad's Shazam. Internet
okay, here we go. The movie that doesn't exist. There you go. Have you found this headline? Remember Shazam, the Sinbad... Oh, the Sinbad, not Shaq. That's where I get confused. Right. You remember Shazam, the Sinbad movie that doesn't exist? You're not alone. Parallel universes have long been a staple of science fiction, and a bizarre phenomenon involving a large group of people remembering a movie that doesn't actually exist, at least in this universe, has led some authors to think that we're in an alternate dimension. Hundreds of people claim to remember a 90s classic movie starring comedian Sinbad as a wish-granting genie. Problem is, the movie, remembered as Shazam, never existed. This phenomenon is not new. Sinbad went on Twitter with the idea that the movie existed in 2009 and has used all social media to correct people ever since. A false memory, you could call it, as an extreme example of a general phenomenon of memory distortion. Yeah, I thought there was a name for it, but maybe I'm wrong.
So what does exist is
Mandela effect. That's what it's called.
What is it called?
It appears it appears to be another instance of the Mandela effect, an informal term for a collective false memory. The term was coined by a woman who discovered that she and hundreds of other people believed and remembered that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 80s. Mandela actually died in 2013. It's called the Mandela effect. Right.
Oh, wow. And it turns out that there was a movie called Kazam starring Shaquille O'Neal, which is what you said, as a genie who helps a young boy find his father. Oh my God.
Do you think do they still put athletes, I mean, I don't watch a lot do they still put like athletes in American movies, like in lead roles? Who's like the biggest, what's his face? What's his name? You know, fucking hell. I'm going to be hung for this. Cleveland basketball guy, probably the greatest modern basketballer. LeBron James.
Yeah,
Does he
LeBron
do
was
or anything?
He was really good in Amy Schumer's movie.
Oh, that's right.
He was really
funny. But he doesn't
funny.
headline films. Like in the 90s, when Michael Jordan, was this huge star, it felt like they would try and get basketball in everything. Like, if you could have an action film that somehow, the third act could be solved with a basketball game or something, they would do it. Like, it was insane how they tried. He was such a megawatt star. They tried to cram him into every medium.
Yeah. You know what I think has done really bad for celebrity sports people being in movies?
O.J. Simpson?
O.J. Simpson. Yeah, I reckon O.J. That you might be experiencing what scientists know as the O.J. effect, Charlie.
Man, I just binged the People versus O.J. Simpson. Have you seen that?
It's good, huh? I loved it. I really enjoyed it.
I watched that. There's that awesome doco. I think it won the Oscar, which is Made in America, which is like a 5-part. That is incredible. Like, if you don't give a shit about sports or even O.J. Simpson, that is one of the most thorough, absorbing, thoroughly depressing documentaries you'll ever see. And so, having seen that, I was like,
I agree with you.
I don't think I don't think I'm going to dig the dramatization, but fuck, it was good. It was so good. I actually had to get back. I crammed it. I watched like 3 or 4 and then would like, I'm going to watch another 3 or 4, get through it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I watched it in the opposite order. So I watched the dramatization before I watched the documentary. And I love the dramatization, but that documentary, because I just didn't really get all his sporting achievements and stuff, and the way that they were able to kind of show you, where he'd come from as an athlete, and, the way that he hadn't wanted to be involved politically, and, kind of the success of where he'd been and what that story was beforehand. I just didn't really know that. And they told that story so well as, in conjunction with the rest of it.
I was actually thinking that's probably the better way to do it. Now I've seen the People versus OJ. I want to go back and watch the documentary again because, there's so much stuff happened in that case, which you would not believe. Like, it just seems so outlandish. And then you watch that documentary and it's like, oh my God. But it's just it's one of those things where sometimes you wonder, like, can you make a film about something where everyone knows how it ends, like Titanic or whatever? Like, right. But that they played it to perfect effect, where you knowing how it was going to end actually made every scene so much more tense and anxious, and the stakes are so much higher because you knew he was going to walk. And I was really interested because the documentary does a fantastic job of showing...
Mike Howell, you might have to put in a spoiler announcement that people know that OJ gets away with it. Just so in case anybody's really been hanging out for the doco and the dramatization to find out the end result of the O.J. Simpson case. Turns out he did it and got away with it. Sorry, guys.
They do this great job in the documentary of showing what happened to O.J. post-acquittal, like how his sort of life fell apart and all this kind of stuff. Yep. And I was thinking, watching, as I was getting towards the last episode, I'm like, well, what are they going to do? Like, they're obviously not going to go into the post-acquittal period. Like, how are they going to sum up just like how fucking terrible the situation is? And they did it. Like that scene where he's at the party that he's thrown, the day he gets out of jail, it's like fucking smart. That's really good. You've just done it without any dialogue. This guy is now fucking like completely isolated. He's dug his own grave, so to speak. Yeah, it was awesome. It was such a good telly movie.
Yeah, that's the terrible thing about OJ is that he's provided 2 of the best pieces of television over the last year.
It's funny too, I actually went into a bit of a rabbit hole about all the conspiracy theories that were flying around at the time, and it's amazing, isn't it, with the benefit of kind of hindsight, because we all get swept up in sort of media events and stuff like that. We definitely, if celebrity was big in the 90s, it's fucking 100 times worse now. We've talked before on this show about just getting so there's so much noise out there and there's so much to absorb, and, being able to find your way through all that to find out what the truth actually is really, really hard. But fucking even back then, I remember, I stayed up to watch that, and I'm a kid in Australia who all I knew OJ from was the Naked Gun movies. All I know was this spectacle. It was like you picked a side and you wanted to see how it turned out, and then it's like, oh shit, people died, and then this election we've just had, it's like, oh, let's pick a side, blue or red, yell at each other, and it's like, well, no, people are actually going to die.
Yeah. There was a lot of allegations around the OJ thing. At one stage, there was an allegation he got an assistant to blow cocaine up his ass, but Johnny Cochran said, if the straw does not fit, you must acquit.
If the straw's covered in shit,
you must acquit.
What do you make of John Travolta?
In what regard do you mean? In the show?
Yeah, he's sort of entering a new phase now, right? Isn't he? He's getting, because he's older now, obviously, but he will only be able to do actor parts now. Like, he's not a leading man anymore.
No, I mean, look, he's had plenty of goes at it, John Travolta. Like,
I don't think he'd be complaining.
I mean, he might be, but he kind of has those moments where he comes back strong and then he goes away again, you know. And I think now the only sort of chance he has, I think also the whole Scientology thing and whatever, you know, has just kind of put people off him a little. You know what I was interested in is Tom Cruise is the lead in the new Mummy film.
You didn't know that?
No. I mean, I guess I don't keep up to date with Tom Cruise news, but also The Rock was a lead in a Mummy film. Is that really what Tom Cruise... I mean, it looks good, I think, but is that...
Yeah, okay, so here's what's going on, right?
Right.
Every studio is building their universes. So the guys who have, you know, King Kong and Godzilla and stuff are making all their individual films, and then they'll bring those guys together for a team up. So Universal, who have the classic Universal monsters, the Mummy, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the Invisible Man, Dracula, they're making... This is what they're doing. That's why there is an action-adventure tone to that kind of film, is that they're going to do like the Mummy film, and then there'll be a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde film. And I think there was a rumor for a while that Russell Crowe was being circled to play Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Well, hang on. Dr. Jekyll... No, yeah. Played Dr... No, hang on. Who comes first? Mr. Hyde. No, Dr. Jekyll.
Yeah, Dr. Jekyll. I think the crazy
Play
one's...
Dr. Jekyll.
I think the crazy one's not the doctor. I think the doctor's the sensible one.
Yeah, it's literally in his name, the guy who hides away. The rumor was that he was going to be playing Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but then I saw him in that Mummy trailer. So
yeah,
either he's not doing the Jekyll and Hyde film, or they're already linking those universes together. So maybe like Tom Cruise's character's gone to see his mate, Dr. Jekyll.
I mean, that'd be... now, the more you describe that, if that's actually what happens, I'm suddenly interested.
Really?
Like, yeah, I think so. I mean, I actually watched the trailer and went, this doesn't look bad. Like, I have a soft spot for the Mummy ride at Universal Studios. And so I have a fondness for those Mummy movies. And because also it was kind of one of The Rock's first breaks. Oh, by the way, that's the biggest sports person who's in movies, The Rock. But, yeah, but I think I had that real affection for that franchise just because of the ride mostly. I really liked that ride at Universal Studios. And then when I saw the trailer for that and I saw Tom Cruise and Russell Crowe, I'm like, oh, this is a whole new Mummy. Mummy's got a new swagger. Mummy's had a facelift.
Yeah. MILF.
Yeah, this is MILF.
Mummy's
this
a
shouldn't
MILF.
be called the Mummy. This should be called the MILF. The mummy I'd like to fight. She's a MILF.
Did I say last time we recorded that I went to Disneyland?
No, tell me about that.
Yeah, I've never done a theme park apart from we went to Wet and Wild once.
Yes.
Years ago, but Australian theme parks, from what I understand, don't compare. So I went to Disneyland,
The most magical place of all.
Well, here's the thing, Will. My parents went there in the late 70s. And like you would have thought that, you know, my mum had like come back from a distant land, because the stories she brought of Disneyland, like she gathered her children around and would tell us about these rides she went on and stuff. And we would just be like, what? There's a haunted mansion and you see ghosts and stuff. And she had bought these like slides, like from the gift shop, that, you know, we would put the slides on and look at them and be like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like there's pirates in that Caribbean, that kind of stuff. So
also she's gone, I have 8 children, 9 children, right? 9 children. Is that right? Hang on, have I got that right?
9.
Yeah, 9 children.
Yeah.
I've got 9 children. I can't afford to take them to Disneyland. So we're just going to go and make up lots of good stories about it and come home and tell you. That's as close as you're ever getting.
But that was exactly what happened. Is like we would.
Right.
There was 2 things she brought back: this box of slides, and there was this cassette tape which was called Ghostly Sounds, which was just like a collection of kind of like literally ghostly sounds. There's a vague narrative tied to it.
Just
but
like,
we would.
ooh.
Yeah, that kind of like chains rattling and stuff.
Right.
And so we would like turn all the lights out and put on the slides in the Haunted Mansion stuff. And that was as close as we got to Disneyland. So that's been my life for like 35 years.
Right.
And then because I've been pretty much working the whole time I've been here, but then I was like, I'm going to take a week off. I'm going to do some touristy stuff. And so we had some friends who are in town who've got a little daughter. So we said, why don't we do a trip to Disneyland? So the day we chose to go, it was pissing down with rain. Like it was probably the only time, I've seen rain like that in California. But I was like, you know what? This is probably not a bad thing. Thin out the crowds. We're going on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. No, we got there, like not school holidays, nothing. Tuesday, heavy rain, and it was crammed. Like I could not believe it. But the problem is, like Gemma has been there before and my other friends had been there before. To me, it felt like Berlin, the theme park, because it was just like heavy rain, you're wet, you're cold, everyone's sort of running around trying to find shelter. There's nothing but long queues everywhere. Like, it just, I found the whole thing quite stressful. When I actually finally, because every ride there was like at least an hour wait. So you get these like fast tickets and then go off and do something else and then come back and get on the ride. And when you're in the rides, amazing. But that was like 5 minutes of amazing. And then it was another like 2 hours of like running from the rain or like trying to get something to eat in there that didn't immediately give you a headache. Like everything in there is just like loaded with sugar, like super like potent, expensive. We had this, they've got their, I don't know, it's like their New Orleans region where you go. And so we went and get into this restaurant and it was like sitting next to this fake river in this restaurant where they're bringing out like fake New Orleans food and it like tasted horrible and was like really expensive. And I'm like, this doesn't feel like the happiest place on earth. Like I kind of feel like I'm in a shopping center. I mean, it was weird. All the stuff that I liked the most was all the old rides. Like I love the Haunted Mansion. I just thought that was great. I mean, it feels like they have not changed anything from, what my mum told me and what I saw on those slides. But then we did have you done the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland?
I've never been to Disneyland because Yeah, I've never been. I've been to Universal like a dozen times, but I've never been to Disneyland. I don't really love Disney characters. Like, I don't have any particular fascination with Disney and the world of Disney. And as much as some of these things have come as a surprise to you, Charlie, all I've ever heard about Disneyland is it's really crowded, really expensive, and nowhere near as good as you would think it is. So as a general vibe, plus, Walt was kind of a Nazi. So there's just been enough. And it's enough of a drive away from where I live. There's just been various factors that have meant nah. And plus, also, one of my good comedian friends said, you know what we should do? We should take magic mushrooms and go to Disneyland. So tell me if that was a good or bad idea. Like, from your experience, would you say terrible idea or good idea?
I don't know. Look, if you took magic mushrooms and somehow had the park to yourself, it would be awesome. Right. But I can't imagine being in there because ultimately you spend the entire time waiting. And even if it was sunny and stuff, because it was so wet, we didn't have any of the characters running around and
walking around.
Yeah, like there was just because
suddenly Mickey Mouse looks like a drowned rat.
Exactly. But I haven't been to any other theme parks. I haven't been to Universal. Like Gemma's, like you, has been to Universal heaps of times. She loves it. But I've got nothing to compare it to. But I remember I went to, Sydney used to have a shitty theme park called Wonderland. Was it Australia's Wonderland? It was out in like the western suburbs. And we went there for a friend's birthday when we were like in our 20s. And we all got like high and thought, this would be funny. We'll go to, this theme park. But you walked in and the first thing you saw was this kind of like paunchy, overweight Wolverine with these plastic like claws that are sort of like half bent. There's like a Spider-Man walking around in a suit that's like too baggy for him and shit, like looking, all these ex-Nighter actors looking like they wanted to kill themselves. But at least they had rides, whereas like there's no roller coasters. I think there's Adventureland on the other side of Disneyland.
Right.
Disneyland proper, the old park, it's all like themed rides. Like we went on this, that's the other thing. Since Disney have taken over Star Wars, like it was, I mean, you thought Star Wars was saturated in the past. My God, like it was insane. Like the amount of merch for Star Wars now and the amount of people just throwing down heaps of cash, like holy shit, man. Like, that was worth of $6 billion, whatever they paid. They would have made that back that one day I was in Disneyland.
Oh, mate, Star Wars is just so much about the merchandising. I mean, it was started pretty much about the merchandising. That's how George Lucas paid for it all in the first place. But yeah, in the hands of Disney, you've taken it from somebody who loved marketing and merchandise and then put it in the hands of the only person left in the world who loves marketing and merchandise more than he did. So yeah, it's crazy.
It's weaponized. But there was this Star Wars ride we went on where it was like one of those 3D rides where you get in a little carriage and then, C-3PO's there and you go on this ride and stuff. I was terrified.
What do you mean?
Like they're shaking this thing around and all I'm doing is looking at this like 3D screen with my glasses on. But I was like, I don't know, I'm liking this, Will. And I've been on roller coasters and stuff, but this one was like, they're dropping you through spaceships and stuff, and Darth Vader comes down at one point, he uses the Force on you, and you can't get away. I found it very stressful. So, no, don't take mushrooms before you go to Disneyland. Well, take them, just don't go on the Star Wars ride.
Well, don't go with you on the Star Wars ride. I think I'd be fine with it because I know that Darth Vader is not a real person, but apparently even straight you have trouble differentiating that.
Hey, it's after midnight-ish.
We should definitely finish. I've got to do a show tonight as well. So, plugs. I'm currently doing my Critical Will tour all over Australia. By the time you hear this on Sunday, I will have done the Sydney Opera House shows the night before, so no need to plug those. But Melbourne International Comedy Festival, then Darwin, Perth, Wollongong, the Newcastle region. I've got a bunch of other dates, so check out comedy.com.au. And most importantly, next Saturday night at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, we will be doing TOFOP live at the Comedy Theatre. Guests include John Deeks, hopefully, fingers crossed, if he gets back to us.
Because back to me.
Otherwise, we'll have to get Sam Mack, the new John Deeks. Nick Cody, who is brilliant, Celia Piccola, Daniel Sloss, a bunch of other fantastic guests. It's going to be a really cool night.
Yeah, you can get tickets from Ticketmaster or just check out our Facebook page for more details. I'm going to be flying in literally the day before the show, so I'm going to be super jet lagged. It's going to be they're always loose shows, but I think I'll be extra gullible that night. Before we go, Mike Howell has just sent us a little addendum. The process of introducing cocaine into the anus is known as boofing. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Wil Anderson.